Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man number 28. Spoiler warning for anyone that hasn't read the story, I will be outright talking about the comic book itself in its entirety, and then I'll be giving my opinion at the end, just so you're aware of that. Otherwise, if you don't mind following the story through my video, then you're also welcome to do so. But without further ado, let's begin. So the story begins with JJ, and he's rushing into the Oscorp building with a shopping cart, and inside of the shopping cart, he has the broken down Doctor Octopus arms, and that he's just storming into the building with them. And he's yelling, "We've got a man down!" And he storms right past the receptionist lady, and she's saying, "Sir, you can't," but she gets cut off, and he's just yelling, "I need Peter Parker." He storms past the janitor, and he's yelling, "Get the hell out of my way, egghead." And the janitor's just like, I'm literally just the janitor. Eventually, he does come across Peter, and he says, "Peter, thank God I found you." Peter turns around and questions Jonah, and JJ shows Peter the broken down Doctor Octopus arms, and he says, "Look what they did to him." Norman Osborn points at the arms, and he questions, "Excuse me, are those Otto Octavius's mechanical arms?" Peter's questioning, "What happened?" And JJ responds to both of them by saying, "I don't know, they turned up on my doorstep like this. Can you put them back together?" Norman says, "No, absolutely not. Those belong to Doctor Octopus. Please remove them from my facility." And JJ is being kind of stubborn, saying, "Osborn, you heartless ghoul, what do these things ever do to you?" And he says, "Try to kill me many times?" JJ responds with, "Oh, you can change, but they can't?" Peter agrees to the statement by saying, "He's right, Norman." And JJ just smirks. Peter then follows it up by saying, "These things were acting autonomously last time I saw them. They saved my life." Norman says, "You're kidding me." Peter responds, "Can we at least try to help them?" But Norman is very persistent. He doesn't want to. But inevitably he gives in and says, "Fine, take them to Lab 3. And JJ is in the background saying, "Atta Goblin. I knew there was a heart beating in there somewhere." Then we cut over to Doctor Octopus's secret lab. And Kraven the Hunter is just handling one of Doctor Octopus's little minion things that, he detaches from his arms that I explained in my previous video. And he's describing them as hideous and says, "This godless machine has a foul temper, Octavius." Doctor Octopus follows it up by saying, "It has my temper, Sergey. My previous appendages expressed an apparent part of my personality. I have found hiding in the ventromedial cortices of my prefrontal lobe. I won't make that mistake again. The new ones are all amygdala, pure aggression to fuel my revenge." Sergey continues describing them by saying, "A toy, undercutting your mythic struggle with the spider." But Dr. Octopus says, "Ah, Sergey, such a focused hunter. You don't see the forest for the trees." And quickly Dr. Octopus's creatures just surround Sergey and start attacking him. And Kraven's like, "Ah, you dare ambush me?" Doc Ock says, "Never presume to guess my prey, Sergey, lest you find yourself mired in your own short-sightedness. Octoids, heal." And in saying so, the little octoids come off of Kraven and back and form the full arms of Doc Ock. Dr. Octopus continues saying, "You brought me the key to my revenge. Believe me, you have nothing more to offer. Leave me," saying this to Kraven. And this refers to a moment from the Free Comic Book Day from 2013. If anyone read that, I personally didn't. It sounds like Kraven brought Dr. Octopus some doohickey-milwaukee, and we'll see how that applies in this story. After kicking Kraven out, Doc Ock says, "I have to go to work." Fucking same. Relatable. Next, we move over to the Oscorp building where they're fixing Doc Ock's previous old arms. And they show it almost like a hospital scene, and JJ's just in the waiting room and Peter walks out, right? JJ questions, "What happened? Are they okay?" And Peter says, "They're fine. Norman's just finishing up." JJ continues, "What? Why aren't you in there?" And Peter says, "Norman's the expert when it comes to Otto's tech. There's a history there." And JJ says, "Yeah, well, I don't like the way he was looking at them. If he leaves so much as a scratch." And Peter's quickly trying to reassure JJ by saying, "Jonah, easy. What's gotten into you? Last time I saw you with those arms, they were holding you hostage. Now you're acting like they're the family pet?" JJ elaborates more and says, "Well, maybe they started coming around my place more often, just to stay out of the rain. Then maybe for a warm place to sleep. And maybe I tried to chase them out at first, but maybe I started looking forward to them coming around, curling up on the bed, keeping my feet warm." And Peter says, "John Jonah Jameson, you old softy." JJ responds saying, I just don't think I could handle it if something bad happened to them. And Peter said, hey, you don't even have to worry. They're in good hands. Cut over to Norman Osborn, who's working on the arms at the moment, and he's saying, lab note, repairs were relatively simple owing to the device's design philosophy, specifically communication flow prioritizing between appendages and nervous system interface, presumably to provide a stimulating feedback from radiation. This greatly simplifies diagnostics interface and facilitated targeted repair. And just to cut away for a moment, this does confirm that the arms do in fact tickle Doc Ock's pickle when he comes across radiation. Anyways, back to the story. Norman says, in layman's terms, all done in relation to fixing up the arms. And they do come alive, but the arms start freaking out. And Norman's like, stop that, I'm trying to help you. But they lash out and smack him in the shoulder. But Norman's like, where do you think you're going? The old arms walk up to a wire, and Norman says, what? It's just a simple diagnostics cable. Or is that what you're trying to... Oh no. And it looks like the arms do pull that cable and an alarm starts going off. And the screens around Norman start saying, system compromise. And at that very moment, Dr. Octavius is standing right outside of the Oscorp building. And he's saying, I believe Norman Osborn has just learned the dangers of taking in strays. And now for a second lesson, if you take from Otto Octavius, don't put your name on your building. Not if you expect to keep it. Let's go, boys. Referring to his little arm minions that are just following on the ground beside him. Doc Ock walks into the building and he walks past the receptionist and she says, hello sir, do you have an appointment? And he's like, I do not, and just continues walking. The little minions are left behind, distracting just the people there. Little minions are just causing havoc as Doc Ock just walks his way through. We cut over to Norman Osborn, who's freaking out, and he's saying, Peter, the arms were a Trojan horse. Otto's code is in the system. And Peter tells him over the comms, it's not just his code. Otto is here too. And Jonah's also freaking out at this moment, saying, shouldn't you be getting changed? Referring to Peter, changing into Spider-Man. But Norman over the comms is saying, don't worry, the security doors are stronger than anything Otto is capable of by design. And outside of the security doors, Doctor Octopus is saying, alright my Octoids, everyone hold hands. And they all form to just create his arms. So he uses that power to open the security door. Now this is causing all the alarms to go off. And the AI voices saying, security breach, countermeasures initiated. And Dr. Octopus, after hearing that, says, oh, countermeasures? Throw it all at me, Osborn. Whatever obstacles your genius can devise, I'll find the challenge a tantalizing amuse before I... And at that moment, Doc Ock gets cut off by the spider bug who jumps in and smacks him in the face. Doc Ock responds with, dear sweet holy god, what is that? Spider-Bug goes back with Spider-Man to just dramatically pose in the comic how they do be doing that. And Spider-Man says, that's Bug. Me and Bug want you to leave. But Dr. Octopus is laughing his ass off. And he's like, never! Octoids! And his arms deform and start creating the little minions. And he swarms Spider-Man with them. And Spider-Man's saying to himself, careful, okay, this is new. And then says to his bug, get me schematics on these things. I need... But at that moment, the little minions just trash his bug apart. And I think this is like the second time that's happened. And Spider-Man's like, I don't know why I keep bothering to fix that thing. It seems to not really come in handy, but it's a funny gag at this point, the way it's being written. His spider glider, just a little useless, but it's funny that it just breaks. But inevitably, the Octoids do surround Spider-Man, forming back into the arms of Doctor Octopus, and then they combine back onto his spine. And Doc Ock says, your machines are playthings, Spider-Man. Trifles. Mine are engines of destruction. They don't pause to be cute. They don't offer reports. They are made for one purpose, to impose my will. And as he's saying this monologue, he's just smacking Spider-Man around, almost knocking him unconscious. Doc Ock continues saying, go on, I'm waiting for one of your classic bon mots. Doc Ock continues squeezing Spider-Man. Spider-Man does sound like he's trying to say something starting with the letter N, but can't quite get it out because of course he's getting squished by Doc Ock. But Dr. Octopus says, what? What's what? Come on, boy. Speak up. A voice out of frame says, he's trying to say Norman, as in Osborn. And Norman shows up with his gold glider suit, and he says, "I have 20 ways to put you down in this thing, Octavius. Don't make me pick one." Doctor Octopus is like, "What can I say, Norman? I'm a curious cat. Do your worst." Norman follows it up by saying, "I was hoping you'd say that. Say that." And then Norman's suit starts giving him system compromising messages, questioning, "Systems compromised? After Chasm's attack, Doc Ock finishes his sentence by saying, "Rewrote your tech's encryption from the ground up. Pity your stooge allowed one of his spider bombs to come into my possession." And it looks like something sneaks up right behind Norman and it just electrocutes him, knocking him unconscious. So, for the most part, still in these Spider-Man comics, Norman doesn't do anything with his suit, which is some boo-boo stuff, my dog. But anyways, the Gold Goblin's knocked unconscious on the ground, and Doc Ock's still holding Spider-Man, and he says, "Do you feel my new power, Spider-Man? Do you feel your insignificance?" Spider-Man's thinking to himself, "Can't get my lungs to take in air, body in shock, can't." Inevitably, Spider-Man does get knocked unconscious, and Doc Ock says, "Be thankful for it," and he tosses Spider-Man's body on the ground and follows up by saying, "It's the only thing that kept you alive." After tossing Spider-Man, Dr. Octavius picks up the Gold Goblin and says, "I didn't forget what you did to me, Goblin King, what you took from me. Imagine all I will take from you." And to be continued. That's how that story ends. So what do I think about the comic book itself? Well, honestly, I enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. It did sort of meet my expectations that came to be from the previous one, because I was decently hyped to just, see what was gonna happen with the story after that introduction. And this follow-up one didn't disappoint. The very beginning, though, I found kind of funny, silly, stupid, where JJ storms into the Osborn building with Dr. Octavius's previous arms, seeking help, trying to, repair them, because he ended up, getting attached to them. Like I said, that was pretty silly, but when it comes to JJ's specific character nowadays, he is more of an emotional, fun gag kind of lovable character now. He's not really an asshole. And so playing into the story and the characters, a character like him, after spending time with the old Doctor Octopus arms and, having this dog-man relationship, after he sees them get mangled, he does seek after the smartest people he knows, and that's Osborn and Peter. Well, in this case, it was specifically Peter. Osborn just happened to be where Peter's working at. But anyways, to the point, I like that part. It was funny, silly nonsense, and JJ inevitably does convince Norman Osborn to help him repair the arms inside of his facility. Funny way to lead to chaos. But the rest of the story, the characters continue to be fun. Kraven shows up and he starts roasting Dr. Octopus's gear to the point where Doc Ock's like, "Shut the hell up and leave, dude, and leave me to my work." That part was a lot of fun. Now, by allowing the old Dr. Octopus arms inside of Norman Osborn's place, as he's fixing them, they do become a Trojan horse, and they freak out and go against Norman's best wishes, and they pull some random ass wire, basically sabotaging him. The artwork in particular is what makes this comic for me. It heavily exaggerates some of the characters in their own unique way, and that's pretty fun. I mean, just looking at the Doctor Octopus in the cover, he looks super goofy, and that's pretty fucking hilarious to me. But I'm really enjoying the artwork in this comic. Although, again, they do have a repeat of that Norman Osborn shows up in the gold glider suit, acting all heroic in his own way, only to just get eliminated right away. First it happened with Ben Reilly, and then now it's happening here. Although, after knocking out Spider-Man unconscious at the end, and Doctor Octopus said, "I didn't forget what you did to me, Goblin King." Oh man, that raises so many questions. So I'm very interested in the next comic. What does he mean by Goblin King? What is he referring to? The Green Goblin? Is there something in the past where the Green Goblin ended up effing over Doc Ock in some way? Well, we're gonna see what happens, and I'm pretty excited for it. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for listening to me talk about this comic book, and if you're interested in listening to me talk about more comics, Spider-Man comics, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.